Tonight on World Report.
Sorry, baby.
No.
Sorry.
The government says childhood vaccines are safe. So why are they quietly making payouts to so many kids with autism?
There have been people who are compensated for vaccine-induced brain damage who have autism. That is not a trivial finding in our view, and it requires further investigation.
Many parents and advocates say this is all about hypocrisy and lots of money. Now, from Centerville, Tennessee, here's correspondent Greg Dobbs with his story. Vaccines and autism. Mixed signals.
Thank you.
Sadly, you don't need a medical expert to tell you Kimberly Sue Latour of Centerville, Tennessee is not normal.
Michelle, look at mommy. Look at mommy.
And you can say the same for Michelle Cedillo of Yuma, Arizona. Both girls are brain damaged, and both have limited language and socialization, lots of repetitive movement, no eye contact, no tolerance for change. This is a traditional picture of severe autism. Both families, Kimberly's and Michelle's, insist that the cause of their autism is the vaccines they received as little girls. But there's one big difference between them. Despite the fact that the United States government insists, because of some studies, that vaccines don't cause autism, Kimberly was compensated for her condition by a special court created 25 years ago by Congress to pay damages to people for what are called their vaccine injuries. She's been compensated. Michelle has not.
Hi, Eric.
Eric was born January 23rd, 1998. He was 8 pounds, 13 ounces. It was a long labor. He was much bigger than any of us would have expected. He was perfect.
Although much more mildly autistic, Becky Estep's now 13-year-old son Eric is another example.
You can't hide from me anymore.
Perfect until 9 months. That's when, although he was sick, Eric had his first vaccination for hepatitis B. Then after that, and after each subsequent vaccination, screaming and diarrhea and infections and fevers and rashes, and over the next 2 years, a slow slide backward.
I looked up the what to expect the toddler years, and I saw a checklist for autism, and I could put a check in every single box. A speech delay. He spoke, but it was echolalia. I would say, "Hi Eric, how are you?" And he'd say, "Hi Eric, how are you?" He had speech, but it wasn't meaningful speech. It wasn't reciprocal. And I just looked at my husband and I said, "He has this." And I read him the checklist, and my husband said, "He does."
But, like Michelle Cedillo, Eric hasn't won compensation for a vaccine injury. Which leads to the question, if the government says autism cannot be blamed on childhood vaccinations, then why have some families with autistic children still been compensated while others haven't? Why the inconsistency? It turns out it seems to be determined by both timing and semantics. When the special vaccine court ruled that Kimberly's vaccinations were to blame for her condition, it awarded her the resources she needs for round-the-clock care. The money came from a trust called the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, funded under a congressional mandate by pharmaceutical companies for victims of vaccinations gone bad.
Happy birthday to you.
Michelle, whose medical records show that she was just fine before her first vaccinations for measles, mumps, and rubella, went to the same court, claiming the same kind of cause and effect between her vaccinations and her condition. But the outcome was different. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program denied a link and didn't award her a cent. Yet the chilling story that Kimberly's mother, Sue, tells mirrors what Michelle's mother says also happened to her.
Kimberly was born perfectly normal. No medical issues at all. You're gonna fly off today? She's hanging on pretty good.
But at 9 weeks came the first of Kimberly's childhood vaccinations. It changed the family's life forever.
When she was given the shot, Kimberly screamed like a wild animal, a feral cry. I have never, and I pray to God I never hear it again, heard a baby cry like she did.
And this is not just a child screaming because a needle's going
This
into the
wasn't a
arm.
baby crying because of that, no, and it was within 15 seconds of her getting that shot.
By that night, Kimberly was even worse.
She was full-blown grandma. So I had never seen
For
a
people
baby.
who don't know what that means,
A grand mal seizure is when the head goes back, the arms are flailing and jerking. It's totally involuntary.
today, Kimberly, born in the early 80s, is almost 30 years old, mentally disabled, subject to seizures, and autistic. Compensation from the federal fund relieves a financial burden, but that's all.
I would give everything we have got, everything she will ever have, everything that we would do on this road if I could have a normal child. Money means nothing. The only thing it means to me is my daughter's comfort later in life. Not even comfort, safety. A good foundation for her.
But there's no money like that to provide a foundation for Michelle Cedillo. Born in the mid-90s, she'll be only 17 next week. Or for Eric Estep, who is just 13. The timing of their births was bad. Because unlike Kimberly Sue Latour, by the time Michelle and Eric were having their childhood vaccinations,
Sorry, baby.
every state was mandating them and a lot more kids were getting them. And a lot more parents were reporting awful reactions. In Michelle's case, that includes seizures, which continue to this day. And in most cases, loss of language, diminished social development, part of the sometimes slow but certain onset of autism.
What do you think about over there for our picnic? All right.
Becky Estep and her husband, a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, filed in the vaccine court for compensation. Compensation for an injury they believe was caused by Eric's vaccines. They didn't have scientific proof, but they saw no other plausible explanation for the behavior disorder that haunts their son.
If I would have had Eric and I would have delivered a baby that was disabled from the beginning, I kind of would have accepted that was my lot in life. But that's not what happened. My husband and I were given perfection, and then something happened.
What? You don't want to be on the videotape?
Could it have occurred independently?
I've asked myself that, but 3 hours after the injection, it's way too much of a coincidence.
For all the trouble to have started
For all
at
the
that point.
troubles to start. I can't see that. How do you go from healthy, bouncing baby boy to all of these problems within 3 hours?